Welcome to the Oscoda Township regular board meeting of March 9th, 2020. We've already done our call to order, pledge of allegiance, roll call, closed session. We are now back into open session and into agenda additions. I have quite a few items to add. These will all be under other. For other number 3, it is adding the Cybus invoice of $3,825. For number 4, it's increasing 2020 appropriations for the DDA Operating Fund 252. Number 5 is Spicer Group Phase 1 Water Main Project Closeout. Number 6, request to establish a township board meeting for Tuesday, 26 May at 7 p.m. in the library. Number 7 is to move 2 invoices from the consent agenda regarding invoices from the Police Chief David, totaling $2,414.40, and moving it into number 7 of other. Number 8 is the attorney bill dated 2 March of 2020. Does anybody have anything else?
What is the, more specifically, what's the topic of the attorney bill?
Payment of the attorney bill.
Okay.
Are those the ones that are included in the board packet tonight?
Which one's included in the board packet?
The attorney bill, March 20, is that what you're,
Where's it at?
no, that's what I'm asking you if it is.
I don't understand.
Oh, I'll just wait for the conversation.
All right, is there a motion to approve the agenda with changes?
I move that we approve the agenda with changes.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Cummings, support by Mr. Palmer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the agenda's passed. We're on to our public comments. For this first one, a card needs to be filled out and submitted to the superintendent. There's a 4-minute time limit, and when you come up, please introduce yourself. Do we have any cards?
We don't.
All right, then in the consent agenda, are there any comments regarding the work session minutes of February 21st and the meeting minutes of February 24th? Under finance, there's payment of bills of $140,325.31, minus the $2,414.46 for those 2 invoices, which equals $137,910.85. Are there any comments regarding those? Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Cummings, support by Mr. Gajewski. Roll call?
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Gieske?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes,
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Subcommittee reports and project updates. Any comments, or first one up is cabling project.
Yes, so the long-awaited date. So we have agreement from ATI and from IT Right that they will do submit the paperwork to Charter to end the phone numbers and to schedule a cutover date. So there's always that 10-day period, but they've got 10 days to complete that request. They're going to submit it on the 17th, 18th of March, and the actual cutover to the brand-new service would begin, no pun intended, on April 1st. So it actually would be great because it starts this right at the beginning of the month, so we get a full month service out of it. They would have prorated it anyway. It wouldn't save us money, but it just gives us a nice clean cutover. IT Right will be here on the 31st, as will ATI, so we will have phones going out onto people's desks, cables getting connected from the wall into these new phones. And then the next morning, we'll be switching over to the new phones. And then once we're up on the new system, we can take the old phones off the people's desks so that we don't have a cluttered workspace. And so ATI will be here long enough on that April 1st morning to make sure that the system is actually working. There will be people here, and there'll also be people monitoring the setup or the installation that we're up on this new system remotely from their network operations center. So we will have virtual people involved as well. That's really it. And at this point, I'm looking later on in the agenda. There's an item to start to close out the project, so we'll discuss that one later. That's it.
RAB?
Yeah. Then the RAB. Let's see. I was notified that it's not going to be possible to have a play date for the documentary prior to the RAB. It will probably be after the RAB, but could be as early as the evening following the RAB. I don't know. That's just what I'm hearing from the team that produced that documentary, and they're working on that. As best I know, that's all I've got at this time.
I was told they wouldn't have the release forms until in April.
Then that's another possibility as well. Perfect, great. So then we won't be then. We won't be looking at March 18th. Good. I was hoping that we would have it even before the RAB, just to be honest. I wanted this to be information for the community. I wanted people to be able to see it. I thought it was an incredible documentary. I was in Ann Arbor and saw it. It's phenomenal. I think it's beyond informative. And it doesn't play to just emotions. It gives you information and data, facts, which I think is important. So, yeah. So I was hoping that it would be, but it won't be. We'll be playing it afterward then. Sounds like. Thanks.
Zoning administrator.
All right, so in attendance this evening, we have Mr. Eric Shemansky, and he's going to go up to the podium and give you an understanding of what he's been working on and the projects he's tackling.
So I just wanted to give you guys a brief report of what I've been working on since I got hired in here January to replace Lorna Gansey. Lately, I've been putting together planning commission and subcommittee packets, doing notifications for that. I completed the citizen planner program through the state of Michigan, which is the prerequisite for the MSU extension zoning administrator program. I've been doing trainings through MuniCode, closed out 2 violations. I'm working on finalizing the vacant building registration form. And I've attended a federal grant opportunities workshop, received quotes from Beckett and Rader that you'll see in your packet today, and I'm working on updating that for also quotes for the master plan. The subcommittee is currently reviewing the marijuana ordinance and sign ordinance. I'm going to continue to work with Muni Code for a resolution on that, and I will have an update for you on that. I'm working with 4 current people, owners, to close out violations, and today I did just finish the redevelopment ready RRC certification. So I'm going to be working with the Economic Improvement Director, Todd, to put together a guide to development that is going to include the rezoning process, site plan review, special land use process, and many more things that will hopefully be on our website. And then I'm going to continue to work with Beckett and Rader for the B2 conversion to form base. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Phase 2 water main extension.
Right, so last week, we had the pre-construction meeting, and that was with the Rowe Professional Services as well as Team Elmer's. And so right now, the Team Elmer's crew has been identified, and they are working with Rowe to get all the notifications out as far as letting the residents know when the construction will begin. Right now, they're planning to begin construction in May and have everything wrapped up in September for phase 2 of the water main extension. And so during that pre-construction meeting, went through all of the different contracts the week before. We closed on the USDA grant. So the ECWAG grant, we closed on that, and the pre-construction meeting really means that they are waiting for weather where they can start opening up the ground and doing the water main extension.
The 2020 Downtown Summit.
All right, so the 2020 Downtown Summit is Wednesday, April 1st, 6 p.m. in the Warrior Pavilion. We have quite a few things going on with the Economic Improvement Committee. Eric had mentioned that we attended a federal grants opportunity training. There we have a new regional partner with the Michigan SBDC, which is the Small Business Development Center. And Mr. Michael Nunnally has confirmed that he will be able to be there, and he provides free of charge services to small businesses. We have been notifying the downtown business owners of the summit, as well as we plan to share information about form-based code, what that means for the State Street Business and Neighborhood District, as well as what we're working on to extend form-based code into the B2 district. With the technical assistance dollars we got from the MEDC, we were able to get the play sleep strategies for the economic development strategy, as well as the downtown redevelopment strategy. Many of the tasks and many of the items on there involve coordinating and engaging the downtown business owners. And so we are inviting the downtown business owners to attend the Downtown Summit to be able to understand what these strategies mean and tell them about what it is we're working on and be able to get their feedback. So again, Downtown Summit, Wednesday, April 1st, 6 p.m. at the Warrior Pavilion.
All right, I also have regarding that we received word that Sue Aller's office may be requesting use of the Artisan Hall prior to the next board meeting relating to the impact of the rising waters of Lake Huron. Right now, the tentative date is the 13th of March at 2:30 p.m., but we don't have anything set in stone yet, so I'll let everybody know if that does come to fruition.
Is the Artisan Hall going to be big enough? I went to the ASABL Township meeting, and the whole boardroom was packed, and there was people out in the hallway, all down the whole hallway for that meeting. just so you know.
All right, anybody got anything else? All right, then life and disability, short-term disability policy renewal.
Right. Much like the healthcare insurance policy renewal being approved by the board for the first time, the same situation exists for life and disability and short-term disability policy renewal. Board members will also note that the same situation exists for the vision and dental policy renewal. The clerk's office is working with the insurance consultant to align all the insurance policies to renew on January 1st of every year. Your packet contains an email on the 23rd of February from the insurance consultant, as well as the life and disability and short-term disability renewal effective February 1st, 2020. The board should note that there are 0% increases associated with both renewals of each policy compared to last year. The renewal of the policy requires township board approval.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the renewal of the life and disability insurance in the amount of $11,612.40, effective 2/1 of 2020 through 1/31 of 2021.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes,
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Let's go to Township Fire Department helmet purchase.
All right, so your packet contains a memo from the fire chief dated the 21st of February, 2020, concerning the purchase of 32 fire helmets from Apollo Fire Equipment for a total not to exceed $10,970.05. This purchase is in line with the 2020 capital improvement plan for the fire department and came in significantly less than anticipated. And this is Fund 206, the Fire Department Equipment Fund. The board will note that the fire chief included the other bids as part of the supporting documentation, and this purchase requires township board approval.
Comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the purchase of the fire helmets.
Support.
Motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Gieske. Roll call?
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes,
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Let's go to Township Fire Department rescue saw purchase.
All right, and again, this is Fund 206, which is the Fire Department Equipment Fund. Your packet contains a memo from the fire chief, and this was dated the 19th of February 2020, concerning the purchase of a rescue saw for $829.46. And in his memo, he goes into detail about the fire department using the current Jaws of Life and rescue saw on aircraft and how that they failed. And so this rescue saw is specific for if they would ever need to get into an aircraft in an emergency situation. So the purchase is below the $2,000 threshold, but the fire chief goes into detail about the specific needs, and I thought it was pertinent for the board members to understand. So the board will also note that the fire chief included the other bids as part of the supporting documentation, and this is under the $2,000, but I wanted to bring it to the board.
Comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of a rescue saw for the fire department in the amount of $829.46.
support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Ms. McGuire,
Yes,
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Gasky,
Yeah.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Second rate of proposal for form-based code in the B2 district.
All right, as mentioned by the zoning administrator in his update, your packet contains a quote from Beckett and Rader for $12,000 to expand form-based code into the B2 district. Again, this borders the State Street Business and Neighborhood District. And your packet also contains a memo from the zoning administrator explaining this request. This is in line with the 2020 Capital Improvements Plan, and this project has been recommended by the Planning Commission for the Township Board to consider, and this requires Township Board approval.
Comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the proposal from Beckett and Rader to expand form-based code into the B2 district at a cost of $12,000.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Gasky?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes, motion's passed. Request to advertise for dust control.
All right, so over the weekend with this warm weather, it kind of made me understand it is that time of year again, and the Township Board typically contracts for annual dust control to be performed in May and July. Your packet contains the invitation to bid associated with the 2020 road dust control. Based on this proposed RFP, the township would be accepting bids until Friday, March 20th, 2020 at noon. This is structured to then be back in front of the Township Board for approval at the next meeting, which is March 23rd, 2020. Advertising for the dust control RFP requires Township Board approval.
Comments?
It seems to me that we do this every year. We put it out, a whole list of people that we send the bid to, and we only get one response, and that seems to be the case for a number of years. I was just thinking over the weekend, would there be any advantage to us in offering a contract for a longer term, say for 2 years or 3 years, to do our dust control? Might we get a better price if a contractor knew they were going to do this for multiple years, even though we only get one response? I mean, is that something we might consider, or?
It is something the board could consider, yes. I can't guarantee that's going to get us lower prices.
Or more participants, right? Yeah, okay.
It was just a thought.
Yeah.
Seems like the cost is pretty consistent year over year. It was just a thought, since the same person's doing it every year.
Right.
Yeah.
Seems to make kind of sense that we did it.
When
multiple years.
we put it out to everybody, we can ask that.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the advertisement of an RFP for dust control for 2020.
Support. Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Weed. Roll call?
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Gasky? Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Weed?
Yes, motion's passed. Request from Oscoda Township to purchase a retired police vehicle.
All right, so your packet contains an email dated the 3rd of March, 2020, from the Oscoda Township Superintendent requesting consideration of an offer to purchase a retired police vehicle for $2,500. The board should note that only the framework of a deal is what is being proposed at this time. The actual transaction cannot happen until the new police cruiser is delivered at the end of the month. The new police cruiser will need to be retrofitted and put into active police vehicle rotation prior to this transaction taking place, and Oscoda Township's request requires Township Board approval.
Comments?
Yeah, are we certain that we're going to get the new cruiser by the end of the month? since we have.
We have not heard differently that it will be here on the 23rd of March.
Is Asabel okay with it contingent on us receiving that, which could, let's say, take another month or two, or whatever it may be?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
Do we know, I spoke with Curtis today to find out what was the next vehicle coming out of rotation, and that was the 2016 Explorer. So that would be the one that they would be purchasing for that amount of money?
They'll have their choice based on which one is in the better condition.
We have other ones that are already out of commission?
So after all is said and done, we would normally we will have 3 to put on Bid Corp. Those 3 that would go on to Bid Corp, they would have the selection to the one that they would want out of those 3.
Do we know what shape the other 2 are in out of the 3 that they would be considered?
Like, are they in equal shape, you mean? Or-
Right.
Yeah, right.
So just for example, when we get a police cruiser out of rotation, typically the first thing to go would be the struts, and then the bearings associated with the suspension. So those are not in great shape on basically any car that comes out of active status from the police rotation.
So Asabo will be able to pick which one of the 3 that they prefer out of that so that we can ensure we're not giving them a lemon.
Okay.
Well, I was just curious because the last one that we sold that was like close to that age was like $6,000. So instead of $2,500, I know the 2 Crown Vics that we got rid of were in a lot worse shape, and those we got rid of for about $1,200 a piece. So
Were we gonna update, the superintendent vehicle? When one of these
That's all.
vehicles come out of service? And so the current vehicle you're using would go into that pool, be one of those 3?
Correct. And Ensemble is aware of that plan.
So we'll pick the better one to put back into service for your vehicle.
Any other comments? I make a motion, we approve Asabo Township's request to purchase a retired police vehicle for $2,500.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call?
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
yes,
Mr. Gieske? Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Weed?
Yes, motion's passed. Township Hall recabling and and phone replacement project.
All right, so the recabling and phone replacement at Township Hall is nearing completion. While Trustee Cummings was reconciling invoices to the project deliverables and budget in order to begin closing the project, he identified a mistake. Somewhere along the way during this project, the custom rack for $1,900 was no longer included in the total budget amount, resulting in a net budget shortage of $1,383.90. Comparing the invoices to the original project scope and subsequent change orders discussed with the board, ATI and IT Right both completed their work under budget. A small amount of contingency in the budget plus the invoice shortfall amounts to $516.10. That lessens the budget shortage to $1,383.90. This brings the project total up to $48,064.82 and requires Township Board approval.
Comments?
I'm happy to answer questions.
This is the final bill.
It is. And we're just closing all out.
I would just say, I don't know where the mix-up was, but I went back in the packet from January 14th of 2019, there was a detailed list of things in this cabling project.
Yep.
This bid was on November 28th of 2018 to you from Win Mueller for this rack and components in the amount of $1,900.
Correct.
So that isn't a new amount.
No.
This was in the original.
Correct. In fact,
Proposal.
there's been no change in scope in the sense of we didn't get an increased invoice from anybody. And like we said in the narrative, ATI and IT Right actually came in under.
Right.
What happened was, it was always in the original, the first number that started this project. Somewhere after that, which we've had 2 conversations prior to this one about adding additional money to the project. During that time, at some point over the last 9 months or so, the 1900 got lost. It was originally part of an IT Right quote because IT Right was promoting them as the vendor that they wanted us to use, that they were comfortable recommending. And then down the road somewhere, we were adding in all these numbers, trying to come up with, okay, we're trying to come up with contingency. We're trying to come up with some additional cabling runs that needed to be installed back in November. And so there was this opportunity to go and try to reevaluate, well, how much more money do we need? And somewhere in that point, we didn't add in that 1,900 into the budget, plus what money we were additionally asking for. That's where I think we got caught. I should say I got caught.
Yeah, and
That's it.
the first line of this proposal, it says that this rack, as specified by Caleb at IT Right.
Correct.
So
Exactly.
IT Right was the one that specified this rack.
Yes.
At the 1900.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It's been part of it since November of
It has.
2018.
It has, absolutely right. Yeah, like I said, there's no change in scope in that sense. We didn't add something else in. There was no invoice from somebody who wasn't ever previously approved or anything like that. It was just, clearly just a number. It was not added in when we were trying to figure out, coming back to the board, looking for additional money. We should have asked for, somewhere along the way during one of those adjustments, the total should have included a $1,383.90 as well, instead of waiting until now to do it. This was just, like I said, it was just, we missed it. And it didn't become clear until we were reconciling all the invoices, which is like we reconcile a bank account. You know, you're trying to anticipate the end of the project and you're taking all the invoices, putting them together. And I sat down and I went, this isn't adding up. So that's why I'm looking for additional money. I'm sorry, I don't mean to put the board, and I apologize for putting the board feeling like you're a little over the barrel on this. I apologize for that. But it's, there was no malice aforethought, I assure you.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the additional $1,383.90 to the 2019 budget to complete the recabling and phone replacement project.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Gieske. Roll call?
Mr. Gasky.
Yeah.
Ms. McGuire.
Yes.
Mr. Cummings.
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Palmer.
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Sale of real property.
All right, so this afternoon, I was able to email out the board the purchase agreement associated with 5944 North Michigan. I brought hard copies for you tonight. So basically, the board members may note that this is the property, was part of the old dining hall when the base was in active status. The township has the property listed for $18,000. And the offer is for $23,000. So the supporting documentation associated with that being this purchase agreement for $5,000 over the asking price.
Comments?
said it's part of the meeting, but it's a vacant lot now that was torn down, right?
Correct.
Any other comments?
I would ask the board if they would, in the motion, approve the purchase contract, but also have authorize both the clerk and the supervisor to execute all documents associated with this transaction.
All right, well, then I move that we approve, I move that we approve the sale and give the township supervisor and clerk permission to sign all documents related to this real estate transaction.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Cummings, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Resolution and ordinances. We have resolution 2020-04 for Michigan Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund grant application.
All right, so what I was able to send out was based on a discussion with the board at the work session last Friday. What we were able to do is get clarification from Moreau concerning the Iosco County amount that was revised, as well as some of the wording in the resolution. And I brought an updated one with that amount in there. So what this is doing, and resolution 2020-04 has to do with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund, and to apply for the funds associated with Phase 3 of the Iosco Exploration Trail, the bike path.
Comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2020-4 in regards to the trust fund grant application.
Support.
Motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Gasky, Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. On to other, Oscoda Historical Museum.
All right, so your packet contains a letter from the Oscoda Historical Society, and what they are asking is to be able to have the board waive the rental fee associated with the Warrior Pavilion for May 3rd, 2020.
Comments?
Am I correct in recalling that we waived this last year? I think we did, that's right. I think I even went to it.
And I know we've had discussions about waiver of fees
Yeah.
before.
Yep.
But in researching, the Historical Society is one that's specified in statute that fees can be waived.
Oh, it's good to know.
One of the few that are specified in the Michigan statute.
Good, all right.
This states we waiver the charge for, but we waiver the security deposit. We waiver
Is
both.
that right? We waived the security deposit?
No, I'd have to get back to you on that.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. But they're only asking for the cost.
Right, right.
But
I don't think
What
there's
about
anything
the
wrong.
security deposit?
Yeah, there's not anything wrong to ask for a security
Mm-hmm.
deposit. I don't think so.
Because that's returnable if it's,
Right, I don't think so.
because that's returnable if it's,
Right.
it's okay after they're done with it.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we waive the rental fee for the Historical Museum and Society for their fundraiser.
Support.
Motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Request for work session regarding the Consolidated Municipal Services Center.
All right. So based on previous discussions with the Township Board, obviously, we were going to revisit this request, the first meeting in March, which is tonight. Just trying to understand, A, if the board wants to, desires to have a work session associated with the Consolidated Municipal Services Center, and B, if so, then establish the date.
Comments?
The last time we spoke about this, I mentioned that I'm still trying to obtain figures, the cost to operate such a building as proposed. I've found myself in a catch-22. I've not been able to obtain the numbers. Row Engineering has indicated that they don't plan to or intend to calculate those figures until the board makes a determination on whether or not we're moving forward in this process. I have said I find it difficult to say I want to move forward in the process without the numbers, so that's where I find myself. I've been unable to obtain the figures that I said my decision hinged on. So just to update the board, that's where I'm at in the situation. I am curious, if we have a work session, what would be envisioned to the purpose of it, the goal?
I think number one, determine
The,
where the,
if we're gonna do the project, what that would consist of and where.
Well, we've already spent money on Row Engineering to start the project.
Yeah. So the where part would be down to having to go through those notes that we took during the couple town halls, right? Identifying which locations. Is there any way, or is there, would we be able to update any current information about those locations, as far as price goes, for example, or would that be important to the conversation? I mean, things have changed in the time that's passed.
Yeah. That could be part of it. I guess it's a matter of whether the board wants to do something right now
Right.
regarding that, or if you want to have a work session and discuss it, or discuss it at a later time.
Well, it doesn't negate the fact that the fire and the police department still need the space.
Agreed. Yep, that seems pretty irrefutable at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've been down this trail for years and years and years. We get to a certain point and then everybody backs out. So I don't see, that it should just get set aside. We should have a work session. We've spent money on the project. How much money have we spent with Row already?
And
Anybody?
time, and the town hall meetings and,
Right.
You're right. A lot of
And
effort.
gathering information from the public.
Right, totally right. I agree.
So how would the board like to proceed?
I'm okay with the town hall meeting. I mean, work session, I'm sorry.
Me too. I want to do a work session. This is a big deal. Everybody was pushing for this, and now all of a sudden, everybody's getting cold feet. We haven't picked a site or anything like that. You've gathered information. I mean, we spent money on the Beckett Raider to do the parks thing, and we changed all that for the municipal building. Now we've spent money on that. We need to pick a direction.
I would like to see us move forward. One thing that's changed in the past, the Kmart building was part of the discussion. I don't think that is really viable. Kmart's moved out. The building's for sale, but the price is, I think, prohibitive for what the township would want to do.
Sure.
In this regard.
Well, I
So,
think that's what the work session would be for, is to sit
So-
down and evaluate those spaces.
Right.
yeah. I think we've done a pretty good job in the previous work sessions to narrow it down to the spaces that are available. Let's pick one and let's move forward with it.
So just kind of thinking ahead on this and imagining that conversation. So the first item, Mr. Weed, was to kind of go into what do we think that this building would entail? Like what would it consist of? And then we pick a location of.
Yeah, we need to know what we're consolidating,
Okay.
what we're gonna put into it, so then we know what size it needs to be, and that'll be a determining factor of what piece of land it needs to be on.
Okay, that's what I was hoping to be able to get to the second point, because I didn't want to try to make a decision about property before I figured out how much I need, so fair enough. That's it. Okay, good. I'm open for it.
Okay? You wanna schedule the work session tonight?
Ready?
So I brought my phone.
So sometime after the 23rd of March?
Have to be into April for me.
Okay.
Okay, so April.
Wednesday, April 1st is the downtown summit.
Yeah, it's also when we're replacing the phone system.
Okay.
It might be kind of a hectic day, possibly. I would rather avoid doing a big meeting in the afternoon where I have to be there instead of at Township Hall. Does it have to be a Wednesday?
No,
So,
April 2nd?
yeah, that's exactly what I was looking at. What about the next day?
And we're prepping for two events, right, back to back.
Sorry?
We're prepping for two events back to back, the downtown summit, so we're gonna have
Oh,
staff
sorry.
tied up with that.
Right. Pardon me.
About the following week on Wednesday, the 8th,
Wednesday's not a good day for me in the evening.
Tuesday, the 7th.
Are we looking for afternoon or evening? I heard you say evening.
Evening, so that people can be there.
Oh, very good. Okay, perfect. Then Tuesday, the 7th works for me.
Me too.
Works for me.
Okay.
Work for you?
Find out when day comes.
What time?
6 o'clock at the Warrior.
Okay. And you said 6 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Past meetings have been like presentation style with board comments at the end. I think dialogue within the board would be helpful to move the discussion along, move the
Yep.
decision.
I would agree.
Yep, it'd be more like a standard work session.
Okay, I like the idea of that.
Yep.
Public comment, obviously, still available and welcome.
April 7th,
April 7th.
6 o'clock. Will there be public comment before and after, just like a regular meeting?
I don't think so.
Yeah, standard, right? Okay. Right. Okay.
All right, I make a motion. We have a work session for the Consolidated Municipal Services Center on April 7th, 6 PM at the Warrior Pavilion.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Cybus invoice for professional services.
All right, so this was for the police fund 207000801.000 associated with professional services in the amount of $3,825. Due to it being more than $2,000, it requires township board approval. What you can see is basically that we just got billed for this last week, and so wasn't able to make the normal board packet, and that's why I'm asking for an agenda addition.
Any comments?
Just getting charged back to 2019?
2019.
Did Jane get with you about the appropriations? Okay,
We're good.
okay. 'Cause I thought she entered it and it kicked it back.
Yep, we moved.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the bill from Cybus for the psychological consultants for the officer.
Support.
Motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call?
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Increase 2020 appropriations for DDA Fund 252.
All right, so based on discussion with the board, there were discussions about which fund to be able to pay the utilities for the Huron Shores Artisan Hall. And so what I did, I provided the board with the appropriations for funds 248, which is the DDA fund, and then Fund 252, which is the DDA operating fund. There are restrictions on the DDA operating fund. One of the allowable expenditures is operating the Huron Shores Artisan Hall. So with that, all I'm requesting is basically we move the appropriations that I had specifically for Fund 248 into Fund 252. And so I detail those as well as the amount. And in the request would be to increase 2020 appropriations for the DDA operating fund 252 from $0 up to $1,650.
Comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the appropriations for Fund 252.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. All right, Spicer Group Phase 1 water main closeout.
All right, so as part of project closeout for Phase 1 water main extension, there is an outstanding amount to Spicer for $5,128.25. And what we are requesting is for the board to approve that amount to be paid to Spicer upon signature, upon receiving signature of the release.
Comments? I make a motion, we approve payment to Spicer Group for Phase 1 water main project in the amount of $5,128.25, contingent on receiving the release from Spicer Group.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Gieske?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes, motion's passed. Next one, we are requesting to establish a township board meeting Tuesday, May 26th at 7 PM in the library. That's a holiday Monday. This 26th is the Tuesday after. Normally, we would skip a meeting, but this was the time that we could schedule with the auditing agency to present their audit report. Any comments about that?
Yeah, it's fine. So we go to the 26th.
Regular time, 7 o'clock. Fine with me.
Exactly.
All right, I make a motion, we establish regular township board meeting Tuesday, May 26th, 7 PM at the library.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Mr. Gieske. Roll call?
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Gieske?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
Yes. The drug forfeiture account 701, two invoices for that totaled $2,414.46. This was in the consent agenda. However, since this exceeds the $2,000 limit, this was an amount that was purchased without board approval.
Hasn't been purchased yet.
We have two invoices?
Well, it's just like anything else. It's waiting for board approval before we mail the checks out tomorrow.
So then, that should have been a separate item to have that board approval.
Instead of in the consent agenda with the regular bills.
Yes, because typically when a purchase like is made, just like with the fire equipment we had with the helmets, that's brought forward, the board approves it, and then it goes out for purchase.
Okay, well then I guess I would refer that to Dave. There are two separate purchase orders from two different companies, and he has the purchase order attached to each one of them. I guess, my apologies for if it's supposed to be separate.
Can we vote to change the consent agenda so we can cover it tonight?
We can vote tonight to pay these.
They're on the attachment, both of them, from two different companies. And they're under $2,000 apiece. But they are over the $400 policy for the purchase order, so we did have the purchase order signed by Dave. Maybe I just worded it wrong. I should have worded it separately.
Well, but it's for one thing, and that's operation of weapons. And so that puts it over the $2,000 limit.
I'd have to refer that to Dave, I guess.
What are we referring?
What you're saying. Is that correct? What Aaron's saying, it has to be a separate item?
If what has to be a separate item?
The approval for the two different invoices.
I guess typically, anything that involves a fund like 701, we don't have any money appropriated out of there, but it's a custodial account. So if we don't have anything appropriated out of there for a normal purchase, then I would typically bring it to the board to be able to, so they understand what's going on. Fund 701, where this is coded against, is the trust and agency fund, which is a custodial account.
Okay, so can I make a motion then? That we pay it as a separate item to the two different invoices that were presented with part of your board packet?
Well, how did this get put through first? Why
It's
did the
just like-
purchase occur?
The purchase we haven't written the check for it. We haven't purchased the stuff.
We haven't written a check, but the items were ordered.
It's just like any other item that comes to the board in the board packet for approval. We have other items that we've purchased them and they're being board approved. Like Dave said, the trust and agency account and what's outlined in the board packet. Trust and agency isn't one where you have a budget for it. We're custodial for people. The drug forfeiture account is money that they capture in different drug-related incidents that we hold on to that money for them. And the police department is the only one that can spend that money. I can't go in there and say, I want to buy a bookshelf, or let's buy something for, I don't know, the library, whatever. But that money can only be used again to perpetuate drug case activities or help enforce drug enforcement. And that's Mark David, and so that's how it's expended. It's just like, we take in the water deposits into that account to trusted agency too. So $205, somebody pays, well, not any longer because we don't do that. But in the old days, we'd take in that money, but then we could only spend it right back out to that person that put that money in. Same with trailer fees. I collect trailer fees and those go into trust and agency. And then that money is just, I'm hanging on to it, and then I disperse that money, a portion of it to the township, part of it to the state of Michigan, and part of it to the county. So it's not, and it's actually custodial account like my tax account. It's a pass-through agency only. So that's what it's for. So I apologize if it got added to the consent agenda and it was supposed to be a separate item. It was my oversight.
But the purchase of it occurring prior to board approval.
You can say no and we'll cancel it. I won't write the check
Okay. But why did it get purchased before board approval?
because it's drug forfeiture money and they can spend that money. The board approval is just a formality.
Right, the formality that's required, because it still falls under,
We were in between board meetings.
It's-
It's not coming to us as a prepaid. I haven't paid it.
did it have to be ordered at this time, or could it have waited?
That would be a conversation for you to have with the chief. I was preparing for audit and mentioned to him that we had money in there that we haven't used in a long time. And if they needed to have any type of equipment, that it's there for them to spend at his discretion, of course.
So the chief did this on his own,
I
without
gave him,
coordination? Because even though it's under truth and agency, it still has to be managed according to municipal law.
that's fine, and that's why it's coming to the board tonight to be approved.
And if it had been budgeted for 2020, then that would be a different matter, but this wasn't budgeted for 2020 as an expenditure.
You don't budget moving forward, it's going to change because GASB 84 is coming into play. But in the past, you don't budget for trust and agency. They don't know that you can't say, we're just holding the money until they want to use it. It's not, you have revenue coming in, it's been sitting there. The last time we used any money out of there was 2015. And before that, I want to say, but don't hold me to it, I think it was like 2005 or 6, something like that. So they don't use it very often. And actually Mark told me that he completely forgot that they had that money to use, so.
So do we have a procedural problem here regarding an expense being made prior to board approval?
I'm confused because I've heard that the expense didn't actually happen, but then I'm hearing that it did, so I'm confused. Which way is it? Was the purchase actually made?
We have an invoice for it. I have not written the check for it.
Okay, got it.
Purchase was made. Obligation was made
Okay,
to the company.
I got it, okay. Just to be clear, okay.
Well, like I said, with GASB 84 coming into play, as I read it with the memo from Cindy, the new auditor, she was going to sit down with John and Dave and I and go through those trust and agency accounts to make sure that we are following GASB 84 and we can make sure that everybody knows the proper procedure moving forward.
Okay, does anybody have anything else? Any other comments?
No, I just think as a matter of policy, we should, any purchase like that should come to the board first. I know the funds are restricted. There's only certain things you can do with it. We didn't go ahead and order a fire truck without bringing it to the board, and those funds are restricted.
And budgeted.
You budget for that. But generally, purchases are brought to the board before the purchases are made. Now, we haven't written a check for it, so we're not on the hook, but technically, we are. Because we've
Made an obligation.
made an
Actually, we
obligation.
do pay bills without board approval, and they're called prepaids on every other Tuesday that we are approved to pay different bills outside of the regular process of paying bills.
But they're
So that's not
prepaid.
necessarily true.
This was not a prepaid.
No, it's coming to you for board approval.
After the purchase, after the obligation was made.
I haven't written check. Just like for the helmets tonight. I have not written the check for that.
So,
Have the helmets been ordered?
No, we got a quote.
We got a quote. The board then would approve that amount. Then the police chief would place that order, correct?
The fire
So
chief.
in this case, we had an order placed without a budget, without it being budgeted,
It doesn't
and
have to be
without
budgeted.
prepaid or a board approval prior to the obligation.
And it doesn't have to get a quote because it's not over the quote amount.
Quote amount. What do you mean?
It doesn't have to be quoted for the purchase. After over a certain amount of money, are we required to get quotes for a price for different purchases?
If we have purchases over $2,000, that has to come to the board for approval.
This purchase is 2 separate invoices from 2 separate companies.
But it's for the same weapons operation. So
Again,
if we're
I
just going to split
apologize.
things off, then we're talking about split payments. And we can't use split payments as a way to circumvent the
I
purchasing
understand
limitation.
that, Aaron.
The purchasing policy says under section 4, all purchases of equipment and recurring service accepting professional services as addressed in paragraphs 5 below must be authorized by the board.
And that's what I'm getting, authorization to pay it. And I couldn't have taken it to the previous board meeting because it was between board meetings that he brought the invoices to me.
I see.
So in the future, I guess I'll speak to the chief to have him, before he actually places the order, if that's the case that he did, to bring it to the board's attention first. Although I think it's going to be a moot point after we install or comply with GASB 84 anyways, so.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the two bills at the chief's request to have the funds come out of the trust and agency account.
Support.
Motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call?
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Regarding the attorney bill dated the 2nd of March of 2020, can you explain how that has been dispersed within this payment of bills attached to the packet?
If you would have asked me to bring that bill with me, I would have been glad to make copies and been able to explain it to you.
Okay. But that, it is all calculated within this right here?
Again, if I had the bill in front of me, I would be able to explain that to you. You got your board packet last Thursday. You had all day today to ask me that question. You didn't ask me that question on Friday. Had you asked me that question on Friday, I would have been glad to bring it with you so everybody on the board could see the information. I'll be happy to answer your question tomorrow.
I just want, why wasn't it included in the payment of bills?
What, the attorney bill?
Yeah.
That's why I asked the question. He's looking at it right here on the screen, so apparently a portion of it's in there.
Is it? I don't know. I don't see anything here regarding that. That's why I'm asking.
So why are you asking me about the attorney's March bill?
If it was included, if there was anything included here, maybe I'm missing something with this. I don't know.
There was nothing in the payment of bills for the attorney fees in this packet.
But there's a bill
No.
that we're paying?
Well, we
There's a
received
bill
the
that he's
bill.
owed.
We received the bill of 2nd of March. So is the amount of the $4,800 for that bill included within the payment of bills to be paid, to be approved?
I'll have
date.
to look in the pile of bills when I get back to the office to see, and it would actually be the February bill, not the March bill.
Well, we received it 2nd of March.
Right,
That's what
but
I'm
it would have been February's, because you said March 2020 bill, and I was confused by that because we haven't even used March 2020 yet. So I'll be happy to look at the bill and see where it's included or not included, or what the case may be for the update for that.
Okay. All right, we're into our second public comment period. There's no need to fill out a card. There's a 4-minute time limit. Anyone may speak. Does anybody wish to come up? Please introduce yourself when you come up.
Robert Tadger, Hillcrest Drive. It's come to my attention that the ambulance service in Oscoda Township is lacking. I was wondering if this board knows anything about what we're contracted for and what we're getting for ambulance service in the township. I had a couple of people inform me that there was only one operating ambulance for the entire county for emergency services. If that's true, this is a dangerous situation. It puts all of our community in danger. This is life and death we're talking here. One ambulance service is not the right thing to have here. So if that's true, I would really I hope it's not. I would like to know what we're contracted for and what we're getting. We pay taxes for this, and my understanding is that we are sorely lacking in service. I think this is a public safety thing, and if it's true, if the county can't provide something for us in this area, then by God, the state better step in here and do something. We're paying for this. So, that's it.
Anybody else wish to speak? Yes.
Deanna Ruckman, Park Street, Precinct 1. I'm here because you keep beating a dead horse in this municipal building. We definitely need a police department and a fire department to stand on their own. If you move the police department and the fire department out of the crowded Township Hall, you'll have more than enough room. But every time you have a meeting, I'm there, and so are a lot of other people, and we're all telling you we don't want it. You talk to people in Oscoda with the senior center, they don't want to move. You talk to people over here with the library, they don't want to move. So why do we keep bringing this dead horse back? Can we not just get a police department and a fire department someplace, either on the south end of the Township Hall lawn or on another piece of property? But please, leave the Township Hall where it is. I'm going to quote you, Mr. Palmer. The Artisans Hall, when you moved the director over there, you said is the heart of downtown Oscoda. Well, so is the Oscoda Township Hall, the heart of downtown Oscoda. So can't we just stay there and improve the building, or move the fire department and the police department to their own buildings where they will be safe? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, board comment. Anybody have anything?
I would like to make a comment. Probably a lot of people know already, perhaps, but it was announced last week that the Michigan Department of Health, MDHHS, is going to be doing well testing in Oscoda beginning next Monday. They're sending letters out. The idea is to retest wells that have already been tested once to see whether the wells are maintaining the same PFAS levels, increasing or decreasing. I have to take my hat off to MDHHS for this initiative. I think from a scientific standpoint, it's a very good move to develop a database because, quite frankly, with the $13.5 million that the Air Force is receiving to remediate the property here, that indicates to me that at some point, hopefully sooner as opposed to later, this mess here will be cleaned up. And quite frankly, the only way to determine that is by sampling the drinking water wells. Now, in another matter related to that, the Environmental Regulatory Commission has moved forward with lower standards for 7 different chemicals in the PFAS chain of some 3,000 chemicals. Those standards are much lower. Michigan would be perhaps one of the lowest regulated levels in the country for the PFAS for those 7 chemicals. So I applaud them for moving forward with that. Hopefully that will be approved perhaps as early as May of this year, I hope. And I just wanted to mention that Dr. Jonah Keldon is the Chief Medical Officer for MDHHS. This is her initiative, and I think it's a very good move. So I have a phone number for anyone that wants to call to get information on that. That number is 844-934-1315, and there's no cost to have this water tested if you're in the area concerned. And they are sending out letters to the people that they've tested in the past to make arrangements for this. And they'll be starting that next Monday, the 16th. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention that's going to be happening, and I think it's a very good move. So that was it.
Anybody have anything else?
The presidential primary election in Michigan is tomorrow, March 10th, so Township Hall will be open. All 4 precincts in Oscoda Township vote there at Township Hall. So if you haven't voted absentee yet, that's the time and the place to do it, March 10th at Township Hall tomorrow. Poll opens at 7 a.m. and closes at 8 p.m.
Anything else? Regarding the ambulance service, I have engaged the county for 2 years on improving ambulance services. What it came down to, as I mentioned before, where the county administrator had told me, just be happy with what you're getting for what you're paying. Another comment is that pointing at me saying, you're the only one we're hearing from who has a complaint. So it's apparent the county does not hold any weight within the elected officials of the lower municipalities. And it's going to take the people to have to engage the county commissioners in order to create action.
Maybe we should sue them.
All right.
Is there also more to the story regarding the number of ambulances currently in operation right now?
I've heard there's been a significant reduction in the amount of ambulances available, and that there's probably one person, one EMT who's going around acting as pretty much like a first responder because of the shortage.
Similar to what I've heard, and did you also, can you corroborate that we don't have any advanced support, that it's just simply a driver in a van at this point? So if anyone is having something more severe, they're not going to get the support they need?
I've heard something like that.
Okay. This is pathetic. Any idea who at the county is causing this?
Nope, but the commissioners did make it clear prior to this reduction that just happened.
Yep.
When I was engaging with the county, they made it clear that they were not as concerned about it as I was.
Well, I think if the board will remember, I brought up over a year ago when it was announced that our first responders were going to be done in October of last year, and I brought that up almost a year prior to that, early on in the year, that there's going to be a serious lack of coverage when our first responders, because almost invariably they would be the first ones on scene. The ambulance would show up sometimes later, sometime significant amount of time later, but at least someone was responding to the call in a timely manner. And I mentioned at the time, when our first responders go away, there's going to be a shortfall, and maybe people aren't realizing there's a problem because it's sort of being covered by our first responders. Well, they are gone now. And in response to that, Mr. Weed and myself approached Alcona County, had numerous meetings. They run a very good ambulance service up there, and it was after we pursued that avenue with Alcona County EMS that, if you recall, we had 3 representatives from the county here, the 911, the person that's in charge of the EMS, were here to tell us what a good job they were doing and that their response, we were mistaken about their response times. I don't think we were mistaken about it. I think, like I said before, what was happening is the response times were sort of being covered up because our first responders were showing up and being there, so people didn't realize that there was a problem, because there wasn't. Somebody was there. First responders couldn't transport them to the hospital. They had to wait for EMS to do that. But somebody was there to give them a hand. Now that's gone. And I think the other problem is that the EMS technicians are in such high demand across the country that unless you're willing to pay a better wage, they can pick and choose where they want to live and where they want to work and the wage they want to make. And I don't believe our county is coming anywhere near those kind of wages to make that happen. So I think perhaps that may be where part of the problem is they don't have the personnel. The county owns the ambulances, so the county has the ambulances, but if you don't have people to put in them, to operate them,
And that's what they were saying to me too. They don't have the money to do anything more. And I said, well, then, when the millage comes up for renewal, increase the millage.
Right.
And they said that they didn't want to do that. Nobody would pass it. And I said, why don't you let the people decide that? But they did not want to put it in front of the people.
I just find that incredibly dishonest, because you're basically charging people for something you know you can't give a viable service for. So how is this productive?
Right. And then their claim is that everything is fine with the ambulance service, because if you look at the average, the number is good. My concern isn't the average, it's the responses that took 30 minutes or longer. And when you have somebody on a golf course having a heart attack and it takes 40 minutes for an ambulance to arrive, that's a problem. And when it recurs month after month, that's a problem.
Agreed. Mr. Palmer, I think there's two different problems. There's definitely the problem that you were referring to in the time frame that you were discussing regarding Alcona County. But there seems to be something new that's happened recently that's caused a mass exodus. That wasn't happening a year ago, from what I understand. So it's like something new it's gotten worse, in other words, with a whole new problem. And I think that differentiation is important to understand, because it isn't just the same old problem that we're now just understanding. It's a worse problem made worse by somebody who apparently doesn't know how to administer a service, and basically did whatever was possible to run these people out or make them want to go find other jobs. I mean, you don't just find, so many people, 6 or 7 people? How many total are on the staff there? Was it 8 or 9?
Which staff?
For the EMS for the county?
I don't know.
I'm trying to remember how many people there were. It seems like if you're going to get rid of a bunch of people, it just seems wrong. They're running away. Like rats from a ship. So.
Is there
Anything? Go ahead.
any discussion taking place at the, what's it called, 911 board, emergency services board
Yeah,
level?
we don't have another meeting until April 8th is the next time I have a 911 board meeting.
How often does the 911 board meet?
Every other month. So we met in February, and then we meet again in April.
And is the ambulance service manager there?
Yes.
Are they a board member?
Yes.
They're a voting board member.
Yes.
And the manager is the contractor to run it, right?
Correct.
conflict of interest.
At these meetings, are the board members presented with all the response times over that for the board to review, or is it just an average that's presented?
There are no figures presented.
Great oversight. Fabulous.
Obviously, I knew those answers before I asked those questions, but that's what we're looking at. That's the hard issue I've been trying to press with them for 2 years, and they made it very clear. I was the only one complaining out of 25,000 people in Oscoda County, and they have a 90% satisfaction rate on their surveys.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Of the people who could medically fill out a survey.
And survived.
All right, anything else?
Can we get an update on the healthcare center downtown? Is there an update? Are they building this year? Is there stipulations that they have to build this year? Are they ever going to build this year?
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people ask me lately.
So just to kind of answer and some of that, they would have to build this year, or their site plan expires. And I did contact Mr. Bruce Dietz, and he sent me to Alcona Health Center to talk with a lady there, and we're looking at having them publish something in the newspaper, but she has not gotten back with me.
Okay.
And I did that last week. And I also contacted the Pack House to see if they would also give an update on what they're doing.
I have a question while you're up there. The banner that's surrounded the property there for the Alcona Health
Yes.
Center recently came down.
I-
Did you have a discussion about the banner?
Yes, I actually, because some of the zip ties had fallen off, so I had actually sent them an email just asking if they had somebody in the area, if they would be able to re-zip tie the banner. And I noticed that some of the caps on the fence were coming off. So I had sent that email out letting them know that, hey, the caps on the fence are coming off, and and they ended up taking that down, those
Okay.
banners down.
So as a result of you following up on the condition of
Yes.
the banner, you took it down.
I
Okay.
guess it was easier to take them down than it was to put the 2 zip ties in it and put the sign back up. So
And I appreciate that clarity. And I think an announcement on their behalf, on their part, is good because I've had people come to my office excited because the banner's down and they must be
Yeah.
moving forward very soon. So just so that the understanding is clear, and so I appreciate the clarification.
Thank you.
One more thing. Is it possible to ask them that when they put a new sign up, that it actually has their contact information on it, so that the people contact the agency who's actually dealing with that health center, rather than the township it's not our project?
yeah, that would be possible with future ventures like that. To make sure if
For
they
some reason, a
do
lot of
put
the public seem to think that we're putting up this health center when it's not our venture.
Correct.
We're just here to issue permits, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yep.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Anything else? Then I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're adjourned.